You've made so many kind of unique and bold films in their way over your career, and this one is equally so. I mean, for you as a filmmaker, what was the biggest challenge in kind of bringing this story to the screen?
Well, it was a challenge, but it was also the kind of juice of the movie that was so kind of creatively irresistible, which was just, having these two time periods and the structure of intercutting, sort of point counterpoint between the two narratives that on the one hand describes two points of the city's history that are antithetical to each other, where the energies seem absolutely in opposition. And then at other times, because of also synchronicity and strange parallels that occur in the two lives of these kids and their journeys, where time is almost negated and time sort of stops. And so it's a play with time, and it's a play with the way we conceive of time. And also, because they're both trying to figure out who they are, and by looking, in the case of Ben in particular, by looking back and trying to solve a mystery of his past. There are ways that time, the way we manage time and the way those questions about time become little narratives that tell us our own stories. And the museum is a metaphor for that, and clearly how the museum figures in that specific story of his past and who his father was. It's all very coherent from Brian's script.
Was it important to keep Brian kind of on, as this is his baby, was it important to keep him kind of in the process when you were kind of making the movie?
He was around, I think, more than he was around during the making of Hugo. It was so great to have him, but he also was so respectful of the process that he's observing, and I think he got to see it more up close than he had before. We also had a great just phase of working on the script together before I started to shoot. And there were very key places along the way that I wanted to share with him what we were doing and get his feedback and his input. But he was just extremely respectful of. I mean, I put together this team of creative partners that in the production stage. Mark Friedberg, the production designer, of course, Sandy, the costume. Ed Lockman, the master, the cinematographer, and Carter Burwell later, who did the score. So I think, I think Brian was also like, wow, these guys know what they're doing, and they're really impressive to watch. And so I think he had a pretty good time.
You got, a fantastic cast. I wanted to start with Oakes, who was wonderful in Pete's Dragon.
Yeah.
And he has a very unique challenge in this, in that he has to play, obviously, a guy the kid trying to get his hearing back and everything else.
Yeah.
I mean, for him as an actor, how did you kind of prepare him for that, given that he's obviously quite young and everything else?
Well, these kids are so bright and I think pride themselves in, being professionals and wanting to show that they understand the material and that they're coming to set prepared. They're still kids, and there are moments where their minds are wandering and they're talking about different things, and you have to kind of like, okay, let's get back into this. But oh my God, it could have been so much more time-consuming than it ever was. That we were never waiting on the kids, really, more than you do for any actor to get to the point where they need to get to. What was challenging about this particular film was a lot of the mechanics of the blocking, because Ben, who just becomes deaf, meets Jamie, who can hear. Jamie, the product of the New York City public school system in the 70s, knows sign language, but Ben doesn't know sign language. So every time they communicate, Jamie has to, think about what he's thinking. Remember, he has to write it down, show it to Ben. Ben has to read it. Ben then responds verbally because he can still speak. Jamie listens. So there was so much of that in the film, just the sheer mechanics of it and how to sustain that dramatically, for one to both believe that it's real, that it's taking the time that it really would, but also not tire the audience, irrevocably, was a challenge. And them learning it and know, oh, right, I didn't write it down, and oh, I didn't turn the page of the book, or, all of the additional sort of blocking and business that was required. It was a lot for them.
I'd like to ask you about finding Millicent, because, she's just incredible in the movie. Was that your plan, to find someone that was already that could help you with the movie by already being, sign language and everything else?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There was no question. I wanted to cast a deaf kid in the role of Rose, which meant, obviously, casting a non-actor. And I mean, we did explore Deaf West, which is an acting group in the West Coast, but the younger actors in Deaf West are young, old teenagers. They're not this age. They gave us some guidance about where to go, but for the most part, it was up to my casting team under Laura Rosenthal's guidance and passion to really find where communities of deaf culture coalesced in the United States, and to solicit for the role accordingly, and then to get tapes sent in, homemade tapes from kids all around the country after they saw the notice on their bulletin board. And Millie wasn't even in a deaf school. She was integrated into a hearing school, and she just heard about it through English teacher who saw the notice on the board and said, "Millie, this might be something you might like to do." And when Laura and I saw her first tape, and she signs in it, and it tells us who she is, a little bit about her life. And of course, she doesn't sign in the movie ever. She doesn't know sign language in the 1920s as a 12-year-old girl. So I saw a side of herself that you don't even see in the film particularly, a sort of self-possession and you see it in all these other ways, but not through the language. And I just got chills. I almost started to cry. I just felt like I'm in love with this kid already. I just love this girl. And I just prayed that she would have the stuff to get her through all the stages and that she could really do it. As it turned out, she had an innate understanding of the camera that you can't teach anybody. I mean, that is a miracle, and that just happened because we lucked out, and we worked hard, but we also lucked out. And we found her. So it was just, and she's doing another film right now.
Oh, wow.
And she's playing a lead in a John Krasinski film.
Wow.
I mean, it's a miracle. She got two films within 2 years playing leads as a deaf actor.
It's amazing.
It's just, it's
amazing.
so great.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Hey You Guys!
Hey You Guys, huh?
Hey, you guys.
Is that from the Goonies?
It is indeed, yeah.
Nice.
Hey!